Hi everybody, I'm Phil Fatica. Welcome back to Channel 9. This is the Milk Government Channel. And sitting next to me is a young lady I'll introduce in just a moment. And her job is to make sure that the DUIs are corralled. And the DUIs stands for Kathy Tress.
Driving under the influence.
And Kathy, this is Kathy Tress, and you are the Western Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Director of the Pennsylvania DUI Association.
Correct.
A lot of long title there.
Very long.
What does that mean in a short version?
In a short version, that basically means that my office, which is headquartered in Harrisburg, only a few blocks from the Capitol actually, has a contract with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, and we oversee and assist all the funded municipal DUI task forces across the entire state. Yeah. I handle the west, and my colleague, Mr. George Geisler, handles the eastern half.
So you got two people covering the state.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So DUI, I'm drunk. Big deal. Who cares? Everybody drives drunk. What's the difference? I didn't get caught. I mean, there's a real cavalier attitude about this and driving under the influence. And I believe, as we were speaking before we started taping today, it's not just people drunk anymore.
Right.
It is a broader range of a definition.
Absolutely, and that's why we, the DUI Association, and most of the law enforcement never use the word drunk driving anymore. We use the word impaired driving. Impaired. Because if you're incapable of safe driving, whether you're impaired on over-the-counter medication, prescription drugs, illegal drugs, and or alcohol, you are not capable of operating a motor vehicle or a motorcycle safely. Mm-hmm. And you're subjecting your behavior to other people on the road that can have devastating consequences. Yeah. And there may be a cavalier attitude still in existence out there. However, there has been tremendous strides in the past decade to reduce the number of people killed in impaired driving or alcohol-related crashes. So we are making some headway, although people still tend to think that they're okay to drive behind the wheel of a car if they don't feel like they're falling down drunk. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the other myths out there. You know, once you get that buzzed feeling, you've already reached that legal limit. You are impaired. And the sheer nature of alcohol and certain drugs, whether they're prescription or legal or not, affects your central nervous system.
Right, you mentioned that you've made a difference in the numbers. How so? I noticed that there are now a lot of public service ads running, right. Kind of making fun of the key master. You know, you can't drive, I have your keys, and if I think you're not capable of driving, you don't get your keys back, kind of thing. There's
a lot of my police officers will report that during a checkpoint or a roving patrol, which are enforcement initiatives that we can talk about later.
What do you mean a lot of your police officers?
Well, the guys that I deal with, work with, all across Western PA. I consider them my guys because I work with them so much. And
do you train them in how to catch these people who are
I assist with some of the training.
Okay. How do you train them? What do you do? I want to do that, Kathy Tress, and teach me how to do that.
Okay.
What do I have to learn?
When you when you have a municipal DUI task force grant, which in most cases, with the exception of some of the bigger counties, are countywide, there are several trainings that you have to go through and equipment that you need to purchase in order to conduct the enforcement for DUIs. Standard field sobriety training is the number one that we push.
Standard field sobriety training.
Yes.
Okay.
And then they also go through checkpoint updates, checkpoint training, which is mostly case law on the legal ability of what they can and cannot do in order to set up a checkpoint on the roadway.
What can they and cannot do?
Well, for instance, there are certain speeds and certain highways, high-speed highways and limited access roadways. You shouldn't set a checkpoint up simply because it's a safety issue for not only the police officer but the motoring public.
So you won't see them on an interstate, people going 77. You'll see them where you'll speed limit 35, 25?
Yeah,
perhaps?
35, 25, 45, something along those lines. There's a number of officers you need if you're going to be stopping cars in both directions. Mm-hmm. The signage has to be placed at a certain distance. Mm-hmm. That's all based on PennDOT's engineering, just like a construction project, except this is an enforcement activity.
The ones that I've seen is they narrow them down into a single lane, and when you're getting into that single lane, you're slowing down,
right.
slowing down, and then possibly stopping.
Correct.
Do they have the right then to randomly, or do they suspect me, Phil, of drinking? We spotted you back there about 2 miles ago, and our cars phoned ahead and said, hey, check out this guy here. He looks like he might be impaired.
They rarely do they do that sort of thing with spotters.
Okay.
It's mostly it's a systematic stoppage of cars. Every car gets stopped.
Okay.
Whether they see something down the road or not. The only time cars will allow to be flow through the checkpoint is if traffic should back up to a certain predetermined spot before they even got there.
So this isn't just a random, let's pick on the people in Mill Creek Friday.
Oh, no.
We'll go pick on the people
Absolutely
in Harbor Creek
not.
Saturday.
There's a lot of laws behind it.
We don't like those people over there in Fairview. We'll pick on them too. So there's much goes
Correct.
into this. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, in a checkpoint situation, obviously they do not have the ability to really observe the vehicle in motion, the officer, before they stop them. So what they do is when the person rolls the window down, they ask for your driver's license, your proof of insurance. They tell you, I'm so-and-so from such and such an area, and we're conducting, we're looking for DUI drivers, or whatever spiel they say to the driver. And then they observe the driver for signs of impairment at that point. They listen to the speech patterns, the smell of alcohol if it comes out of the car when they roll the window down. And it's obviously how they give them the forms of the documents they've asked for. If their driver's license is right there, but they've passed it 3 times going through all the cards in there, then the officer will get the person out of the car and continue with the interrogation as well as the standard field sobriety test they'll perform.
I flunk. What happens? I flunked the test. They blow
You are
in
placed under arrest.
And and you were placed under arrest right then and there. What happens to my vehicle?
Your vehicle is, in most cases, towed, and then it's up to you, to get it out of that impound lot.
My breath analyzer, whatever it is they use now, I know it's a lot quicker. Do they still make people walk down and put their hands and do these kinds of things?
No. Well, yes and no. That's actually part of a drug grouping of tests for drugs. The standard field sobriety test consists of 3 parts, something called horizontal gaze nystagmus, where they're checking your eyes, and then the walk and turn, and then the one-leg stand. And there are things they're looking for. Now, the horizontal gaze nystagmus, okay?
Whoa. Horizontal gaze.
Gaze nystagmus.
Which is Latin for?
Every person has an involuntary jerk to their eye. It's not visible until you are under the influence of alcohol above a 0.08 or under certain drugs. And once it becomes visible, once you're under the influence or you're impaired, the police officer will have you hold your head steady, and you will watch a stimulus and simply move your eyes back and forth. While you're doing that, he's observing your eyes and the movement of your eyes, and you can see a visible bounce at different portions of the test.
Okay.
And that is an indicator because, again, like I said earlier, drugs and alcohol infect your central nervous system, your brain, which is what makes you feel the way you feel when you're under the influence. So it also has an effect to your eyes and your coordination and your skills and everything, and your judgment and everything that's required to operate a motor vehicle or a motorcycle safely.
There's an awful lot to say about this. There's many rules, regulations, and laws in place. So Phil is found guilty of driving inebriated, not drunk necessarily, but inebriated, and I am arrested. Where am I taken? What happens to me, and what kind of a fine do I get? Or don't I get a fine?
Oh, you absolutely get a fine. And
well, I don't like you because you stopped me and you're an entrapment here. I had no choice. I mean, does that happen?
No.
Okay. So I'm arrested. Do I actually physically go to jail? Like, say, right here in Mill Creek, they would put you in a jail, which is in the township building.
Every police department in every county and every district attorney handles it a little bit differently. Most DUIs, most people that are arrested for DUI, unless there is a specific reason that they would flee the jurisdiction and not return for court, receive a summons in the mail. The police officers release them. If a person comes to pick them up,
police officers release them at the scene?
They'll have a family member, someone come pick them up. They won't release the car necessarily. But they'll release the person to someone that has come pick them up that is sober, because we've had people impaired come pick up impaired people.
Impaired, yes.
Oh, yes.
So I go home, and then I get a thing in the mail that says
and then you have to appear to court.
scheduled to report at usually a district magistrate.
For your preliminary hearing.
Right, and the magistrate would say, Phil, you were SOCO'd, you were drunk. Now we can settle this right here, or you can take your chances and go on beyond this, but we recommend that you don't because you are found right, bango, this is it. What kind of fine will I get first time out?
It's a preliminary hearing with the district judge.
Right.
And that is basically to determine if the police officer had probable cause to stop you or enough evidence to place you under arrest at a checkpoint and things like that. Most people go to common pleas court for their arraignment.
Okay.
They basically, the fines can range anywhere from if it's your first, Pennsylvania has a tiered system
there's
now.
many, and I don't mean to call you out because there's so many there. That
no. Well, actually, it's really not that complicated. It just looks that way.
Yeah, it is complicated.
If it's your first offense within a 10-year period, Pennsylvania has a 10-year look back.
Okay.
In other words, within 10 years.
So in the cop car, they could almost, your driver's license,
they'll know right away if you have a prior DUI.
Comes right up.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or if you're driving on a suspended license, DUI related.
Okay.
Things of that nature.
Sure.
It's based on your level of alcohol in your system, because this is an alcohol situation. Okay. Drugs are an entirely different ballgame. The .08 to a .99 is considered one tier, and if it's your first offense, then your minimum fine is around, I think, $300. But the bottom line is, you've got to now add in your towing costs. Most people get a lawyer for a DUI because they're so concerned that they could lose their license for a year. All right.
So that could happen on top of the fine.
Absolutely. And then if your BAC is above the .10 to a .15, then that is the second tier, and that's another fine. That's $300 to $2,500. And the judge is not in a particularly good mood, you could end up in jail for a few days from that too, depending on the situation.
So the more you are up on that scale, the bigger the fine, the bigger the punishment.
Absolutely. And anything above a .24 has the harshest penalties.
How are you standing up at .24?
Well, I know I personally couldn't, and most people can't, but then you've got some real tested and proven drinkers out there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's not funny at all.
No.
We've seen some young people driving and operating a motor vehicle, walking and talking at above .30s, .35s, where most people would have alcohol poisoning and be in the hospital.
Yeah.
But you obviously realize that they are an alcoholic. They've been consuming alcohol for so long in their life that their body can tolerate it, but they still can't function.
Okay. So